we were just talking about your practice routine.
Well, more specifically, the psychological need to warm up and whether that really corresponds to reality.
So, this, just in context, by the way, this is Ben Monder, and he's here in my music studio to talk about his new record. And I'm incredibly excited because it's an amazing new record. But as is the case when we do these podcasts, there's lots of discursive discussions that happen. And when Ben came in, we were talking about how hard it is to keep your chops up as you get older, and and you were talking about what you do to warm up, what you feel you should do. So
yeah,
please continue.
Well,
a ritual you go through.
Yeah, I've kind of established almost sort of like passively, just through habit, a ritual that now I feel like I need to do like every day or before every gig, and it takes like quite a while. If I do the whole thing, it's like probably an hour and 20 minutes. So it could be worse, but I kind of feel like if I don't do it, then I'm just gonna suck. So
this is like almost like
like I was saying before, I don't know if it's
a bit of an addiction.
Yeah, well, you could put it that way, I guess. And sometimes, I literally won't have time just because of traveling and scheduling and whatever. Like there won't be any time to even like pick up the guitar before a gig, and I'm fine,
Yeah.
And then other times I'm not fine. So I just figured I just got to do this routine just to be safe.
This is like an athlete warming up. Like I have to do my stretches. I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just like told myself this, and I'm also like acknowledging that it might be completely useless.
Yeah. Okay. Give us a sense of what. I mean, obviously, we're not going to spend an hour listening to you warm up, but like what's an example of okay, you're backstage.
Okay, well, yeah, if I'm backstage I probably won't be like using a metronome, but if I'm by myself I'll do the metronome thing of playing scales. I'll start at like put it down to 30. I mean, there's a whole routine that I started to do a long time ago that I've talked about, so hopefully this isn't redundant, but of like if I'm doing the real thorough one, I'm doing like putting the metronome on like 10 or 11 or 9 and doing one note per click.
Oh my God, you do that every day?
No, well I used to.
Wow.
Actually,
because I remember you talking about that at our camp.
Right. I would ideally try to do that every day, and then go even slower, but then increase the amount of like the subdivision. So do like 8 groups of quintuplets within one click. Like if the click is on like 5 or something, and just see if you can like land right on the click after like 40 notes. Which, no, it sounds impossible, but it's, you can get pretty close, or you can, once you get into the flow of it, it's kind of a weird thing where you're just like in the cycle, and
like
you're
locked in
and you know exactly where it is.
Wow.
But I feel like that's got to be good for your time anyway.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I know that feeling from having the metronome at 40 as opposed to 10, that the first time I try it, I'm way off because I don't do it consistently. And then once I get it, it starts to feel relatively easy. But what else? So you do the metronome thing?
Well, okay, but the warm-up, it's just a series of scales, like gradually increasing in speed, and then a bunch of violin studies.
Oh, which ones? The Bach?
The Schradig, book 3.
Oh.
And I used to go through the whole book, but now I go through like the last half of the book.
Oh, wow. Can you play a moment of one of those? Well, you're not warmed
I
up.
prefer not to.
Well, just...
Because it's going to really sound bad.
Oh.
I told you it would sound bad.
Wow, so a lot of string skipping.
Yeah, I think the idea is if you play something like way harder than you would ever actually play, then what you actually play is going to be relatively easier.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of string skipping and like awkward things that you'd never actually do.
Schradic.
Yeah. Schradiec.
Okay. Do you do the Bach violin pieces as well?
Yeah.
Those are a little easier, but not easy.
Yeah. They're more like linear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do like the B minor one or the C major, G minor.
Yeah. Now, what about, and we'll get into this right hand business because there's so much amazing right hand work on your new record, but what's happening here is that you have chord shapes written out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then numbers so that you can, delineate how the pattern is going. So the first chord shape is...
Yeah, pretty sure.
What a beautiful chord. So that's like a C, G, D, A.
Right. C, F, G, D,
C,
A.
F.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed the F. Oh, because you're barring with your huge finger. Yeah, this is not to be taken lightly, this bar at the 15th fret here.
So just for... This is, I think this is pretty much what it is, except that I'm tuning my guitar down a half step, just...
Yeah.
For things that inspire me to flesh out ideas, and sometimes it's literally just a technically like a rhythmic cycle, like what can I make music out of this, and like what's the result going to be, and is it attractive? So that's really all it is. But I think like, I can't discount the influences of like Ralph Towner and Berto Gismonti, and and what they've done with these kinds of sounds and rhythms, and the way they get these timbral results from their guitars.
Well, yeah, those are two great examples, but I mean, not to try too hard to define this, but I would think there's some emotional or spiritual space that's driving you towards this. I mean, some people just want us to party. Some people are devoted to melody. Some people really love straight ahead jazz, bebop, harmony, etc., etc. But you're hearing something that's different.
Yeah, that's probably true, but it's not something I'm really that conscious of.
It's not conscious. Okay, fair enough. Nor does it need to be.
Yeah. I mean, I also value melody really highly.
Yeah.
And, and kind of everything in its place. I like to tackle things from a variety of different, vantage points. So.
Sure. Well, of course, this is just one of your compositions, and there's many, many others that have beautiful melodies, so not to discount that. But okay, so talk to us a little bit about the chord shapes that you're using in this.
Okay, let's see. So So it starts high and then it goes to the lower octave.
Let's go to talking about the piece on your new record. That's I think you said there's two, but there's one SP
3PSC.
3PSC that
Yeah.
is a 21-minute composition, solo guitar composition, which in your Bandcamp description of the record talks about the influence.
Yeah,
specifically.
that's very literal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the title. It was a working title that I couldn't really come up with anything else. Like there was, yeah.
Well,
I had a bunch of working titles that bit the dust, but that one I just went with it. So 3PSC stands for 3-part spread clusters. The full title will be 3-part spread clusters to 3-part fourths, which is one of the 3-part cycles in book 3 of the almanacs.
Wow. Okay. I'm so glad you said that, because I was going to ask you, because I remember you singled out a couple of places that you specifically focused on in those books. Can you, and sorry to put you on the spot, but can you show us a little bit of what that actual chord movement looks like in his books?
Of course.
Yeah.
So that particular one is just in C major is just this. So here's the 3-part spread cluster, right?
Right.
Just C, D, E, and then here's the fourths. And that's in cycle, I think cycle 5. Fourths, cluster, fourths, cluster, fourths, and that's that. It's pretty, right?
Really pretty. Boy, that last chord is a bitch.
And then you can just keep going down the scale.
I'm just going to turn you up a hair so we.
Oh, I can turn up here.
Yeah.
My volume on my
Please.
low.
Yeah.
Well, that's too much.
Yeah. Wow.
I think the trick to the almanacs is start every example on every scale degree, and that way you'll really be fluent in it, and you'll get the most out of it. Like generally, they start on the root.
Yeah.
And then it's easy to just go through that one, from root to root. But if you start things on every scale degree, you'll have the flexibility, and you'll be able to use it in real life, so to speak. So,
Wow.
So that's why I'm this would be starting on the root,
Right.
But then, sorry.
Wow, a couple of those are just huge stretches.
Okay, so that was the beginning of that piece.
Wow.
But then I thought, well, maybe there's another way to interpret that cycle harmonically, so different guises. And then it's just like, so I have the melodic material also to work with, and like how many ways can I just set those melodies that originally came out of the cycle?
And that's so key to me, because I think the piece hangs together so much based on your ability to keep repurposing this relatively small toolbox for a
it's very small
piece.
Yeah.
Before I get you to do that again, I have to ask, so as a composer myself, who's always trying to figure out how to negotiate form, and it's the hardest thing, especially with a long piece, which is why my pieces get longer than I want them to be, and then I'm like, man, is this holding together? Like I'm 3/4 of the way through,
Yeah, I hear you.
and I'm not sure sure of where if my dramatic or my arc is working, or the transition to get back to my material is working.
Yeah, it's hard to hear the whole picture in the abstract.
Yeah, but the longest piece I've ever written is about 10 minutes. This is 21 minutes, and you've got about 8 of them. So on this record, or no, 3 of the 21-minute pieces,
20 plus,
and then a bunch of 10-minute pieces, and that's amazing to me. So talk about your process. I mean, you could have divided this piece into 3 movements, for instance, and made it a little easier on yourself. But talk about the focus of the piece and what it took for you, and what the process was of writing a 21-minute piece, which is really epic. I mean, truly.
Well, I never had the idea that I wanted it to be that long.
Yeah, but talk about how it happened.
I don't know.
It just kept going.
It's like, I always think of like when Lucy is like giving this guy a haircut, and she keeps like messing up one side and messing up the other side, and like eventually the guy has a mohawk. It's like I keep having to like add things to like counter other, balance out other parts, and then like next thing you know, you like have a mohawk of a piece.
Wow.
Well, I don't know if that's
but that's really
accurate,
instructive. But how do you?
You know what? I think it's like I have to decide, what does this material want to do? How much is too much, and how much is like really fulfilling its potential? And usually I err on obviously the side of like I want to fulfill it as much as I possibly can, and still have it hang together. So,
well, that suggests to me a focus and intention, which I think is pretty unique to you. Because most people, I mean, I think it's very hard as a composer to stick with an idea, much less to play it out over that period of time. And so, I'm, deeply admiring of that focus that you have.
I think it's a lot harder to, it's a lot harder and a lot less rewarding to chase a lot of different ideas, and
Agreed.
try to get them to work. I mean, you could write a piece where the intention is to just never develop anything, and that's been done.
I'm not suggesting that.
No, but I'm just saying there's not like just one way to do it. But.
Can you talk a little bit about how, give a couple of examples, at a time that show where this goes from this beginning statement that you've made? Like, well, this was part of it too that I ended up in.
Yeah, at the same time that I was trying to
later.
flesh out this initial material, I really wanted to get some of the almanac stuff in there. So there are other, there's some other examples
Sure,
like
some of that.
So there's this like, I can't even remember what this one is called. I think it's something like that. Something like that.
Yeah.
So I stuck that in there. I brought the handwritten chart of this. Maybe it would jog my memory, or you could at least just like look at it.
So I'm assuming these also exist in Sibelius or Finale.
This one,
It's kind of amazing you wrote all this out.
Well, I always write by hand.
I just want to show our audience this handwritten chart. Those of you who are addicted to your computers, take note. And I'm just looking at this time thing. So 6/4, 4/4, 6/4. Is there any method to this, or are you just hearing different bar lengths?
Just the way the phrases are
that
naturally
makes sense.
coming out.
Right.
There's definitely not a rhythmic scheme at all.
We're wondering. Hold up your hand. So you can see
Okay, it's a little
how
bit-
much bigger.
Yeah, you're
I have
exaggerating.
big hands. I mean, they're huge. So I say this because I think it's important for people to remember. First of all, Mick Goodrick always recommends that you don't overstretch and hurt yourself in your left hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ben is doing some stretches that I don't think anybody without huge hands could do. But one of the things you've explained to me before is that, you know, I think especially if you're younger, you can, you know, which you must have done, you know, decades ago, you can increase your ability
For sure.
to do this if you slowly kind of build that muscle in
Yeah.
the left
I
hand.
mean, if you look at some of the Ted Green chords in chord chemistry, I don't think he had especially big hands, but he could
Yeah.
grab all of those.
Yeah.
And it's just training your. You know, on the other hand, they're like these linear, like Holdsworthian things that, you know, like I can't
Yeah.
even begin to play that kind of stuff. You know,
Yeah.
where your hand is stretching like a fourth and even a fifth, and like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna try to. But so, I think it's a lot of like how you learn and what when your body's more malleable, like what you teach it to do.
Yeah. Do you ever have to kind of stop for the day because you've been doing these stretches and you're like, oh my God, my arm's so sore?
No.
Interesting. Wow.
However, once I did sort of have tendonitis for like a week, I was practicing a passage in a piece I'd written, and it required a lot of like pinky hammer-ons.
Oh.
Like over and over and over again. So like in hours of pinky hammer-ons, and all of a sudden this pain shot up through from my pinky, like all the way up through here, and I knew immediately, like, you gotta put the guitar down and don't pick it up.
Yeah.
Like ever. So
wow.
I did that.
Yeah.
I didn't even try to play again. And I actually remember I did a gig in that time where I only it wasn't a gig where that, you know, I had to, it was like at a restaurant or something with a sax player, and I was able to do the gig with only my right hand and just like different tunings.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So I was still like practicing the patterns
Oh my
with
God.
my right hand that I needed to practice, but it was just like.
But he kept having to
like,
retune. But
yeah, just like open tunings, and so that he could have something interesting to play over.
That's amazing. So, speaking of Alan Holdsworth, I think of him in regards to you because of some of the stretches and the beautiful chord shapes, and he invented his own kind of chordal language.
Yeah.
How big an influence was he on you?
It's hard to say because he's, you know, I love his playing so much, and but I don't know if he's that much of an influence because I just can't even get close to doing anything he could
like the rest
you
of
know?
us.
Yeah, so I don't.
But in
even,
terms of
I don't
tone
even know.
saturation or
Yeah, I love it. I don't know. I hate my
emotional.
tone saturation. Like I don't know. I haven't figured out. Like I know that he spent a lot of time devising
Yeah.
the correct pedal chain or whatever. Like, you know,
like
and I just
years.
like have like a rat and a compressor and hope for the best.
yeah, no, you're not nearly the nerd and tinkerer that he
Yeah.
was.
So, you know, I would love to get close to that. But, so it's hard. Well, that's why I say it's hard to know how much of an influence he was. But, you know, as much as I adore his playing.
You know, I have this story in my book that I was told that he had a recurring dream that he was standing in front of his equipment as the sound was coming out, and he was trying to get this sound that he could never get, and then he'd wake up. Sound familiar?
No, usually my dreams involve me like leaving my guitar on a train.
I've actually done that before, by the way.
Oh, well then
Yeah. So
you don't have to dream it.
yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about the almanac stuff because you've incorporated Mick Goodrick's chord almanac books in your practice routine in a way that very few people have done. Talk just a little bit about the process of working through that vast trove of material. Like if you're recommending to a student how to begin to approach it over a certain period of time, what do you say?
Well, don't be overwhelmed by the vastness of it. You'll do a lot better just focusing on a finite amount of material and really getting deeply into it and assimilating it. And doing everything possible with it, like for example, like putting it through different scales and obviously putting it through every key and seeing how many string groups it can be applied to, because that's the way it'll really begin to creep into your playing, and especially your improvising.
Yeah.
I mean, you could also, and I think he even suggests doing this, just don't study it and just like go from one to the next and see how it just informs your playing more subconsciously.
One a day.
Yeah, but my approach is more to really focus. And home in on one particular cycle, and probably practice it for longer than you think you need to, and then start to try to even apply it. Like ballads are a good way to apply stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely helped with. I would say it's harder to apply some of those things in an improvisational, like real-time setting, but than it is to use them for like compositional ideas.
Yeah.
Because as I've talked about before, like there's all this melodic stuff that's just intrinsic in the cycle itself that you can exploit.
Can you play a little bit of a standard and just do some of the chord work that you love doing so much? I mean, let's say you're just sitting down to practice and you're like, I just want to play this tune and I'm just going to explore the chords, which I love doing, by the way. I could play the chords to a tune all day long. Much more interesting to me at this point in my life than soloing over it.
Yeah. Or soloing with chords.
Yeah. What is that? Just do a little bit of that for us.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about it or not.
Okay, and you could edit this out or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about this. Okay, so maybe I'll start with this.
Okay. Down just a little bit. I'm sorry to say I don't know this melody very well. Could you just play the melody?
Yeah, sorry. So
got a bunch of questions about that. So obviously I'm hearing a lot of multi-directional voice movement and counterpoint and stuff, but can you, where you start playing a chord every beat,
Mm-hmm.
I think, for more advanced players, there's, the step from simply harmonizing the melody,
Mm-hmm.
which can be hard enough, to filling in the spaces between, it's a big leap. So can you talk about how just show us 4 bars of what you just did and break it down a little bit so we see what your
Sure.
thought process are. Like I know there was some parallel chord movement you were doing in force and stuff, but also a lot of very hip counterpoint. Just that much.
Okay.
So where's the melody?
So here's the.
So I know.
Okay, so this is